The Admiral stared at the scientist like she had lost her mind. That's impossible, So-young. Ships can't exist in multiple dimensions. I've been testing it for months with smaller objects, So-young insisted as she pulled up data on her computer screens. Look at these results, Admiral. A quantum-locked object can phase between realities while maintaining the ability to affect the physical world. It becomes effectively invincible because enemy weapons pass right through it, but its own weapons can strike from angles that shouldn't exist. Hyun-woo studied the data, even though most of it meant nothing to him. He was a military man, not a scientist, but he could see that So-young believed completely in what she had created. The question was whether her belief was based on reality or on the desperate hope of a person who had worked too long on an impossible problem. Even if this works, Hyun-woo said slowly, we only have one prototype chamber and 12 ships left in our fleet. How does one quantum-locked vessel defeat thousands of Corvani ships? So-young smiled for the first time in weeks. Because Admiral One's ship that can attack from infinite dimensions while being impossible to hit is worth more than 1 million normal vessels. The Corvani won't understand what they're fighting, and fear is the most powerful weapon in any war. The communication system in the laboratory suddenly activated, and Captain Dale Lee's voice filled the room with urgency. Admiral Kim, the Corvani fleet, has accelerated their approach. They'll reach Earth orbit in 6 hours instead of 12. We need to act now if we're going to do anything at all. Hyun-woo looked at So-young, and then at the quantum lock chamber that represented humanity's last desperate gambit. How long to install this device on a ship? For hours if we work fast, So-young replied. But Admiral whoever commands that ship might never come back. The quantum locks could trap the crew forever in a state between existence and nothing. They would save humanity, but lose their own reality in the process. The Admiral activated his communicator and spoke directly to Captain Lee. Daeho, I need you to bring the battleship Eternal Paradox to the lunar facility immediately. We're going to try something that has never been attempted before. On my way, Admiral. Daeho replied without question. 3 hours later, the Eternal Paradox sat in the facility's docking bay, while So-young and her team of engineers worked frantically to install the quantum lock system. The battleship was humanity's newest vessel, but it had never seen combat because it was completed just weeks before the final Corvani assault began. Now it would become the testing ground for technology that could either save the human species or destroy the crew that operated it. Captain Daeho Lee stood beside Admiral Hyun-woo and watched the installation process with mixed feelings of hope and terror. He was young for a captain, but he had proven himself in smaller battles against Corvani raiders. More importantly, he had volunteered to command the quantum-locked ship even after So-young explained the risks to his sanity and his very existence. Are you sure about this, Daeho? Hyun-woo asked his protege. Once those quantum locks activate, there might be no way to bring you back to normal reality. Admiral. Daeho replied with calm determination. If we don't try this, then humanity dies today anyway. I'd rather risk my existence than guarantee our extinction. Engineer Nam-soo Choi emerged from the Eternal Paradox, covered in grease and electrical burns from connecting the quantum systems to the ship's power core. It's ready, Admiral, he announced. The quantum locks are online and synchronized with the ship's navigation and weapon systems. So-young ran final diagnostics on her equipment, while the crew of the Eternal Paradox prepared for a mission unlike anything in human history. All systems show green, Admiral. The quantum lock chamber is stable, and the dimensional calculations are within acceptable parameters. Hyun-woo shook hands with Captain Lee and looked into the young man's eyes one last time. Save our species, Daeho. That's an order. Yes, sir. Daeho replied as he boarded his ship. The Eternal Paradox launched from the lunar facility just as Corvani scouts appeared at the edge of Earth's solar system. As the battleship moved away from the moon, Captain Lee gave the order that would change everything. Activate quantum locks, he commanded. Reality bent around the Eternal Paradox as it disappeared from normal space and entered a state of existence that no human had ever experienced before. The war for humanity's survival was about to begin. The universe exploded into impossible colors around Captain Daeho Lee as the Eternal Paradox entered quantum lock. Every surface on the bridge shimmered like water, and the stars outside became streams of light that moved in directions that had no names. The crew members looked at each other with confusion and wonder as their bodies began to feel strange in ways they could not describe. Lieutenant Heijin Song sat at the navigation console and watched her instruments display readings that made no sense according to everything she had learned about space travel. The ship's position showed they were simultaneously in 17 different locations, while moving at speeds that should have been impossible. Her hands shook as she tried to input course corrections for a vessel that existed in multiple realities at the same time. "Captain," Heijin said with uncertainty in her voice, "the navigation computer is showing we're everywhere and nowhere at once. I don't know how to plot a course when we exist in quantum superposition." Daeho felt his own mind stretching as he tried to understand their new state of existence. He could see through the ship's hull as if it were made of glass and observe space from angles that should not have been possible. The Corvani fleet appeared before them like ghosts in the distance, but he knew they were also completely invisible to enemy sensors. "Try to think of it differently, Heijin," Daeho suggested as he struggled with concepts that challenged everything he knew about reality. "We're not in one place anymore. We're in all possible places where this ship could be at this moment." Sergeant Jihan Yoon stood in the marine section of the ship and felt his perception of the physical world changing with each passing minute. He could see his reflection in the metal walls, but sometimes the reflection moved independently of his actual body. His Marines were experiencing similar phenomena as they adapted to existence between dimensions. "Sir," Jihan reported to the bridge through the communication system, "my men are seeing things that shouldn't be there. Some of them claim they can observe their own alternate versions, living different lives in parallel realities." Communications Officer Eun Ji-han worked frantically to maintain contact with Admiral Hyunwoo back on Earth, but her equipment was picking up transmissions from timelines that had never happened. She heard conversations between people who had died years ago and battle reports from conflicts that had ended differently in other dimensions. "Captain," Eun Ji announced with growing amazement, "I'm receiving messages from versions of our fleet that won previous battles against the Corvani Empire. In some realities, humanity developed this quantum technology decades ago and already controls half the galaxy." Daeho absorbed this information while trying to maintain his sanity in a state of existence that no human had ever experienced. He could feel his consciousness expanding across multiple versions of himself, and it took all his willpower to remain focused on their mission in this specific timeline. Dr. So-Young Park's voice came through the communication system from the lunar facility, where she monitored the eternal paradox through quantum sensors. "Captain Lee, how are you and your crew adapting to the quantum lock state?" "It's unlike anything we could have prepared for, Doctor," Daeho replied honestly. "We can see the Corvani fleet, but they can't detect us at all. However, my crew is starting to experience memories and sensations from alternate versions of themselves." "That's expected, Captain," So-Young explained from her laboratory. "The quantum locks don't just hide your ship between dimensions. They're connecting you to all possible versions of your reality. You're becoming aware of the infinite outcomes that exist in parallel timelines." Engineer Nam-Soo Choi discovered that the ship's power systems were drawing energy from sources that didn't exist in normal space. The quantum drives were somehow tapping into the combined energy output of the eternal paradox across all realities where it had been built. This meant their vessel had access to virtually unlimited power. "Captain," Nam-Soo reported with excitement, "our energy readings are off all known scales. The quantum locks are connecting our power core to alternate versions of itself across multiple dimensions. We have access to more energy than any ship in human history." The tactical display showed the Corvani fleet approaching Earth in perfect formation with thousands of ships arranged in attack patterns that had destroyed every human defense for 30 years. Their massive battleships moved through space like mechanical predators, while smaller vessels scouted ahead for any remaining human resistance. Daeho studied the enemy formation and realized that his quantum-locked ship could attack from positions that the Corvani could never anticipate or defend against. They could strike from above and below and from sides that existed in different dimensions simultaneously. "All stations prepare for our first quantum attack." Daeho commanded his crew. "We're going to hit 3 of their largest ships at the same time from 3 different realities. The weapon systems of the Eternal Paradox have been modified to work with the quantum lock technology, and they could now fire from multiple dimensional positions while remaining completely undetectable to enemy sensors. The plasma cannons charged with energy drawn from parallel versions of a ship. Lieutenant Heijin Song managed to calculate targeting solutions that existed in quantum superposition, while Sergeant Jihan Yoon prepared his Marines for boarding actions that might occur in several realities at once. Communications Officer Eun Ji-han coordinated the attack through quantum entanglement with systems that existed in dimensions the Corvani could not perceive. "Quantum weapons ready, Captain," the weapons officer announced. "All targeting computers show lock on enemy vessels across multiple dimensional positions." "Fire," Daeho ordered. The Eternal Paradox appeared in 3 locations within the Corvani fleet formation for exactly 1 second and unleashed devastating plasma barges on the enemy's largest battleships. The quantum weapon struck from angles that should have been impossible and with power levels that exceeded anything the aliens had ever encountered. 3 Corvani capital ships exploded in brilliant flashes of light and debris before their crews could even register that they were under attack. The alien fleet suddenly found itself missing its most powerful vessels with no explanation for how they had been destroyed. The Eternal Paradox vanished back into quantum superposition before the Corvani could respond or even understand what had happened to them. Enemy sensors showed no trace of any attacking ship, and their instruments detected no energy signatures or weapon discharges that could account for the destruction of 3 battleships. Admiral Veltar commanded the Corvani fleet from his flagship and stared at the tactical display with complete confusion. "What happened to our lead battleships?" he demanded from his tactical officers. "Unknown Admiral," came the reply from a Corvani sensor operator. "They simply exploded simultaneously. Our instruments detected no attacking vessels and no incoming weapons fire." Back on the quantum-locked Eternal Paradox, the crew watched the enemy fleet's confused response to their invisible attack. Daeho felt satisfaction at their success, but he also noticed that his perception of reality was continuing to change with each passing hour. "Captain," Engineer Namsu reported, "the quantum locks are becoming stronger. I'm detecting that we're becoming more permanently connected to the alternate dimensions. We might not be able to return to normal space even if we wanted to." Dr. So-young's voice came through the communication system with both triumph and concern. "Excellent work, Captain, but I'm reading quantum signature changes that suggest your ship is becoming locked between realities. The longer you remain in quantum superposition, the harder it will be to bring you back." Daeho understood that he and his crew were sacrificing their normal existence to save humanity from the Corvani Empire. They were becoming something more than human, but also something less as they drifted further from the reality they had known. "Continue monitoring our status, Doctor," Daeho replied. "But our mission comes first. We'll worry about returning to normal space after we've saved Earth." The Corvani fleet had stopped its advance toward Earth and was frantically scanning space for the invisible enemy that had destroyed 3 of their most powerful ships. They had no way to defend against attacks that came from dimensions they could not detect or understand. Communications Officer Eun Ji-han intercepted enemy transmissions that revealed the growing fear and confusion among the Corvani crews. "Captain, they're reporting ghost attacks and impossible weapons. Some of their ships are requesting permission to withdraw from the battle zone." "Perfect," Daeho said as he planned their next quantum strike. "Fear will be our greatest weapon against an enemy that has never faced anything they couldn't understand." The war for humanity's survival had begun, and the Eternal Paradox would be its instrument of victory, regardless of the cost to her crew's connection to normal reality. News of the impossible human ship spread across the galaxy faster than light itself, as alien species that had watched the war from distant star systems suddenly paid attention to what humanity had created. The Thraxian Consortium sent scout ships to observe the quantum technology, while the Melody Collective dispatched their finest scientists to study the phenomenon that had emerged from Earth's solar system. Admiral Veltar stood in his command center aboard the Corvani flagship and struggled to understand how 3 of his most powerful battleships had been destroyed by an enemy that his sensors could not detect. His fleet had stopped its advance toward Earth and taken defensive positions, while his technicians worked desperately to find some way to identify the invisible threat. "Admiral," his chief scientist Nick Saron reported with frustration in his voice, "our instruments show no evidence of any attacking vessel." The human ship appears to exist in a state that our science cannot comprehend. Veltar had conquered dozens of star systems for the Corvani Empire, and he had never encountered an enemy that could strike without being detected. The humans have been easy prey for 30 years with their primitive weapons and simple tactics, but now they possess technology that challenged everything the aliens knew about warfare. The Eternal Paradox continued its quantum assault on the Corvani fleet by appearing at random locations within their formation and destroying ships before vanishing back into space between dimensions. Captain Daeho Lee and his crew had become something beyond normal human existence as they adapted to their role as interdimensional warriors. Lieutenant Heijin Song no longer needed her navigation instruments because she could sense the ship's position across multiple realities through quantum intuition that had developed during weeks of existing between worlds. Her consciousness had expanded beyond the limitations of single timeline thinking. "Captain," Heijin announced during their latest attack run, "I can see probability paths extending into thousands of possible futures. In most of them we destroy the entire Corvani fleet, but in some timelines more alien species join the war against humanity." Daeho absorbed this information while coordinating weapons fire from dimensional positions that existed outside normal space. His mind had adapted to processing tactical information from multiple realities simultaneously, and he can now plan battles that occurred across several timelines at once. Dr. So-Young Park worked frantically in her lunar laboratory as her quantum sensors detected changes in the Eternal Paradox that terrified her more than the approaching alien fleet. The ship and its crew were becoming permanently locked between dimensions, and she feared they might never be able to return to normal reality. "Admiral Kim," So-Young reported to Hyunwoo through their communication link, "the quantum signatures are becoming stronger every day. The crew of the Eternal Paradox is losing their connection to baseline reality and becoming something entirely new." Hyunwoo studied the data from his command ship while watching the Corvani fleet maintain its defensive position instead of attacking Earth. "What exactly are they becoming, Doctor?" "I'm not certain, Admiral," So-Young replied with worry in her voice, "but they're evolving beyond normal human consciousness. They exist in quantum superposition, not just physically but mentally as well. They can perceive and interact with multiple timelines simultaneously. The ancient Vorthan Dominion sent their most powerful philosopher king SciFiPrime to investigate the quantum phenomenon that had emerged from a human conflict. The Vorthans had ruled portions of the galaxy for millions of years, and they recognized that humanity had developed something that could challenge their ancient supremacy. SciFiPrime observed the battle from his massive ship at the edge of Earth's solar system and felt genuine fear for the first time in thousands of years. The human vessel operated according to principles that transcended normal physical laws and represented a threat to every established power in the galaxy. "Send a message to all allied species." SciFiPrime commanded his communications officers. "The humans have created something that could destroy the natural order of our civilizations." Back on the quantum-locked Eternal Paradox, the crew had begun communicating through methods that had no names in any human language. Sergeant Jihan Yoon found that he could share thoughts and experiences directly with his Marines across the quantum field that surrounded their consciousness. "Captain," Jihan reported through their new form of mental communication, "my troops are adapting combat in multiple dimensions. They can now fight battles that occur simultaneously in several realities." Communications Officer Eun Ji-han had evolved beyond the need for traditional radio equipment, as she could now transmit messages through quantum entanglement directly to Admiral Hyunwoo on Earth. Her consciousness had become a living communications array that operated across dimensional barriers. "Admiral," Eun-ji communicated to Hyunwoo through quantum thought transfer, "we're receiving surrender offers from 17 different Corvani ships. Their crews are abandoning their vessels rather than face our quantum attacks." The psychological impact of fighting an invisible enemy that could strike from impossible angles was destroying Corvani morale throughout their fleet. Many alien soldiers reported seeing their own deaths in multiple realities, and some had become catatonic from exposure to weapons that existed in quantum superposition. Engineer Nam-Soo Choi discovered that the ship's quantum drives were drawing energy not just from parallel versions of the Eternal Paradox, but from every possible timeline where humanity had developed advanced technology. They had access to the accumulated scientific knowledge of countless alternate realities. Captain, Namsu announced through their quantum communication network, our power levels are approaching infinite magnitude. We're connected to timelines where humanity conquered the galaxy thousands of years ago and developed technology beyond current understanding. Dr. So-Young made a horrifying discovery as she analyzed the quantum data streaming from the eternal paradox. The ship was not just hidden between dimensions, but was being pulled toward a specific reality where humanity had won the war through completely different means. Admiral Kim, So-Young reported with panic in her voice, the quantum locks aren't just hiding the ship. They're gradually dragging it toward a timeline where humans developed this technology centuries earlier and already rule the galaxy. Hyun-woo felt cold fear as he understood the implications of what So-Young had discovered. Are you saying the crew is becoming quantum echoes of a different version of humanity? Exactly, Admiral, So-Young confirmed. They're transforming into the version of ourselves that won this war in another reality. But that means they're losing their connection to our timeline permanently. The Corvani Empire contacted every major alien civilization in the galaxy to request immediate military assistance against the quantum threat that humanity represented. For the first time in recorded history, multiple species were considering an alliance specifically to destroy one small planet and its mysterious technology. Ambassador Sun Ho Kong received diplomatic communications from a dozen alien governments offering to negotiate humanity's surrender in exchange for guarantees that the quantum technology would never be used against their species. The entire galaxy had become afraid of what Earth had created. Admiral Kim, Sun Ho reported from the diplomatic facility on Mars, we're receiving surrender terms from species that have never acknowledged our existence before. They're offering us entire star systems in exchange for promises that we won't develop more quantum weapons. Captain Daeho Lee and his crew continued their interdimensional campaign against the Corvani fleet, while evolving beyond their original human nature with each quantum jump they performed. They could now perceive the mathematical structures that govern reality itself and manipulate probability on a cosmic scale. The eternal paradox appeared simultaneously in 7 locations within the enemy formation and destroyed 12 Corvani ships before the aliens could comprehend what had happened to them. The quantum attack occurred across multiple timelines and left the surviving enemy crews traumatized by exposure to weapons that operated outside normal space-time. Captain, Lieutenant Heijin observed through quantum awareness, the Corvani are preparing to broadcast a general retreat order. Their fleet commander has lost control of his ships, and many crews are abandoning their posts. 3 more human vessels arrived at the lunar facility to receive quantum lock modifications as Admiral Hyun-woo prepared to expand humanity's interdimensional fleet. General Boram Shin volunteered to command the 2nd quantum ship, while Captain Young Soo-ryu accepted command of the 3rd vessel. Dr. So-Young installed the quantum lock systems on all 3 ships, while warning their crews about the permanent changes they would experience once they entered superposition. You will save humanity, she told them, but you may lose your own reality in the process. The galaxy watched in growing terror as humanity prepared to deploy multiple quantum lock vessels against any species that threatened Earth. The age of human dominance was beginning, and would be enforced by warriors who existed between worlds and fought battles across infinite dimensions. Admiral Veltar received orders from the Corvani High Command to withdraw his fleet from Earth's solar system before the humans could deploy more quantum weapons. The empire that had conquered hundreds of worlds was retreating from one small planet because they could not comprehend or counter technology that defended it. All ships prepared for immediate withdrawal. Veltar commanded his demoralized fleet. We cannot fight an enemy that exists outside the laws of physics. The quantum revolution had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The greatest military alliance in galactic history formed within days as 17 alien species united against humanity for the first time since the dawn of space travel. The Corvani Empire joined forces with their ancient enemies, while the Phryxian Consortium abandoned centuries of isolation to contribute their most advanced warships to the coalition fleet. Emperor Mind Quetzalcoatl commanded the alliance from his massive dreadnought that served as the mobile capital of the combined alien forces. Never before had so many different species worked together toward a single goal, but the quantum threat from Earth had terrified every major civilization into unprecedented cooperation. Today we face an enemy that challenges the natural order of the galaxy. Kesselral announced to the representatives of 17 worlds through quantum communication networks that span thousands of light years. The humans have developed technology that transcends physical law, and we must stop them before they perfect their interdimensional weapons. 10,000 alien ships gathered at the edge of human space in the largest military formation ever assembled by any coalition of species. Battleships from a dozen different star systems brought their most powerful weapons, while scout vessels and support craft prepared for the war that would determine whether humanity survived or faced complete extinction. General Boram Shin stood on the bridge of her quantum-locked ship Infinite Dawn and watched the massive alien fleet approach through sensors that could perceive multiple realities simultaneously. Her crew had adapted to existence between dimensions faster than expected, and they now communicated through quantum thought sharing that required no spoken words. General, her tactical officer reported through mental communication, the alien coalition has brought everything they have. Our quantum sensors detect over 10,000 vessels from 17 different species. Boram processed this information while existing in quantum superposition that allowed her consciousness to experience multiple possible outcomes of the approaching battle. In some timelines, humanity won decisively, while in others the quantum ships were overwhelmed by sheer numbers despite their dimensional advantages. Captain Young-Soo Ryu commanded the quantum vessel Eternal Storm from a state of consciousness that evolved beyond normal human awareness. His ship existed in 7 different realities simultaneously, and he could coordinate attacks across multiple timelines while remaining completely invisible to enemy detection systems. Captain Ryu came the quantum communication from Admiral Hyunwoo on Earth. The alien coalition is larger than anything we've ever faced. You and your quantum fleet represent humanity's only hope for survival. The 4 human quantum ships responded to the massive alien threat by appearing in multiple battle zones simultaneously across the coalition fleet. To the aliens' complete horror, each quantum vessel seemed to be fighting dozens of separate engagements at the same time, while winning all of them through attacks that came from impossible dimensional angles. Captain Daeho Lee had become something beyond his original human nature, as weeks of quantum existence transformed his consciousness into a living weapon that could manipulate probability on a cosmic scale. The eternal paradox struck at enemy ships from timelines where different physical laws applied, and their weapons had evolved beyond current understanding. All quantum vessels coordinate attack pattern 7. Daeho commanded through dimensional communication that reached his fellow captains across the barriers between realities. We'll hit them simultaneously from every possible angle they cannot defend against. The alien coalition suffered catastrophic losses as they tried to fight enemies that existed in states of quantum uncertainty. Corvani plasma cannons fired at empty space, while Thraxian energy beams passed harmlessly through ships that existed in different dimensions from their targeting systems. Admiral Veltar watched his fleet take devastating casualties from attacks that his sensors could not detect or predict. How do we fight an enemy that exists everywhere and nowhere at the same time? He demanded from his tactical officers, who had no answers for questions that challenged their understanding of warfare itself. The quantum ships appeared within the heart of enemy formations and unleashed weapons that drew their power from alternate realities where humanity had developed technology thousands of years in advance. Plasma cannons fired energy beams that existed in quantum superposition and could strike targets from multiple dimensions simultaneously. Lieutenant Heijin's song had evolved beyond the need for traditional navigation, as her consciousness could now perceive the mathematical structures that govern space-time itself. She guided the eternal paradox through dimensional barriers that normal physics insisted should be impossible to cross. Captain, Heijin communicated through quantum awareness. I can see the probability waves that control the battle outcome. The alien coalition is trapped in a temporal loop where every action they take leads to their defeat across infinite timelines. Communications Officer Un Ji-han had become a living quantum communication array that could transmit messages across dimensional boundaries and through barriers that existed outside normal space-time. Her consciousness touched every human ship simultaneously while monitoring alien communications from multiple realities. All ships, Un-ji broadcast through quantum entanglement. The enemy coalition is experiencing collective psychological breakdown. Their crews report fighting ghost fleets that appear and disappear without explanation. The psychological impact of fighting quantum opponents devastated alien morale throughout the Coalition fleet. Soldiers from 17 different species reported seeing their own deaths in multiple realities, while their weapons fired harmlessly at enemies that existed between dimensions. Engineer Nam-Soo Choi discovered that the quantum drives had evolved beyond their original design parameters and were now drawing energy from every possible timeline where the battle occurred. The ships had access to unlimited power sources that existed across infinite parallel realities. General Shin. Nam-Soo reported to Boram through quantum communication. Our energy readings show we're connected to timelines where this battle has already been won by different versions of humanity. We're drawing tactical knowledge from alternate realities where our quantum technology is thousands of years more advanced. Dr. So-Young Park monitored the quantum fleet from her lunar facility while watching her instruments display readings that terrified her more than the alien invasion itself. The crews of all 4 quantum ships were losing their connection to baseline humanity and becoming something entirely new. Admiral Kim. So-Young reported with growing alarm, the quantum crews are evolving beyond human consciousness. They're becoming living mathematical equations that exist more as concepts than as biological entities. The alien coalition began experiencing mass desertions as crews abandoned their ships rather than continue fighting enemies that challenge their basic understanding of reality. Some vessels broadcast surrender messages, while others simply fled from the battle zone without orders from their commanding officers. Philosopher King SciFiPrime observed the battle from his command ship and realized that the quantum humans represented a fundamental threat to every established civilization in the galaxy. Send emergency communications to all member worlds, he commanded. The humans have weaponized insanity itself. Captain Daeho Lee existed simultaneously in hundreds of different battle scenarios, while coordinating quantum attacks that occurred across multiple timelines. His consciousness had expanded beyond individual identity, and he now functioned as part of a collective intelligence that included all 4 quantum ship crews. Coalition Fleet. Daeho broadcasts on all alien communication frequencies through methods that bypass their encryption systems entirely. You face opponents who exist outside your understanding of warfare. Surrender now or face destruction across infinite realities. The quantum message reached every alien ship simultaneously and was accompanied by visual displays of their own vessels being destroyed in dozens of different ways across multiple dimensions. Many coalition crews simply stopped fighting after experiencing psychological trauma from witnessing their own deaths in parallel timelines. Admiral Hyun-woo watched the battle unfold from Earth while realizing that humanity had created something that transcended normal military conflict. Dr. Park. He communicated to Sam, "What have we become?" "I'm not certain, Admiral," So-Young replied, while studying quantum readings that showed the 4 ship crews merging into a single interdimensional consciousness. But whatever they are now, they're winning a war that normal humans could never have fought. The alien coalition fleet began broadcasting surrender negotiations on every available communication frequency as their leadership finally accepted that conventional warfare could not defeat enemies who existed in quantum superposition. Emperor Mind Quetzalcoatl prepared to offer terms that no alien civilization had ever been forced to consider. Human Quantum Fleet. Quetzalcoatl transmitted across dimensional barriers, "We request immediate ceasefire negotiations. The Coalition acknowledges your technological superiority and wishes to discuss terms for ending this conflict." General Boram Shin received a surrender offer while existing in quantum states that allowed her to perceive every possible outcome of accepting or rejecting the alien terms. In all timelines where humanity showed mercy, they eventually faced betrayal from species that would never accept human dominance. All quantum vessels, Boram commanded through dimensional communication, ignore surrender offers and continue the assault. We end this war completely or not at all. The 4 quantum ships resumed their interdimensional attacks, while the alien coalition realized that the humans intended to achieve total victory rather than negotiated peace. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when a desperate species transcended the limitations of normal reality. The alien coalition fleet had lost 80% of their combined vessels to just 4 human ships that existed in quantum superposition, and the surviving crews faced a choice between total surrender or complete extinction. Emperor Mind Quetzalcoatl gathered the representatives of 17 species aboard his flagship to discuss terms that no galactic civilization had ever been forced to consider. We face opponents who have transcended the normal limitations of warfare, Quetzalcoatl announced to the alien leaders through quantum communication networks. The humans possess technology that operates outside known physical laws, and they have demonstrated their willingness to use it without mercy. The quantum-locked crews of humanity's interdimensional fleet had evolved beyond conventional consciousness, as weeks of existing between realities transformed them into living weapons that could manipulate space-time itself. Captain Daeho Lee and his fellow commanders now functioned as a collective intelligence that existed simultaneously across infinite timelines. Dr. So-Young Park worked desperately in her lunar laboratory to find some way to reverse the quantum locks and bring the crews back to normal reality, but her instruments showed that the transformation had become irreversible. Admiral Kim, she reported to Hyun-woo with both triumph and horror, our quantum warriors have become permanently locked between dimensions. What exactly have they become, Doctor? Hyun-woo asked while watching tactical displays that showed the alien fleet in complete disarray. They're no longer fully human, Admiral, So-Young replied with scientific fascination, mixed with deep concern. They exist as living mathematical equations that can perceive and manipulate probability on a cosmic scale. They've sacrificed their humanity to ensure our species' survival. The collective consciousness that had once been Captain Daeho, Lee made contact with Dr. So-Young through quantum communication that bypassed normal space-time barriers. We have seen every possible future across infinite timelines. The quantum entity explained through methods that required no spoken words. In every reality where humanity does not achieve absolute galactic dominance, our species faces eventual extinction. Admiral Hyun-woo felt cold understanding as he realized the scope of what the quantum crews had discovered through their interdimensional awareness. You're saying total victory is our only option for long-term survival? Correct, Admiral, came the reply from the Quantum Collective. The galaxy contains too many species that will never accept human equality. They must submit completely, or they will destroy us when we show weakness. Emperor Mind Quetzalcoatl received reports from his surviving fleet commanders that painted a picture of technological superiority so complete that conventional resistance had become meaningless. The human quantum ships could appear anywhere in the galaxy simultaneously, while remaining invisible to all known detection methods. Your Imperial Mind, Admiral Veltar reported through encrypted communication, we have no choice but to offer unconditional surrender. Our weapons cannot touch enemies that exist in quantum superposition, and our shields provide no protection against attacks that come from multiple dimensions simultaneously. The quantum fleet demonstrated their absolute power by appearing simultaneously in the heart of every major alien star system across the galaxy. Hundreds of human ships materialized from interdimensional space around alien homeworlds, while broadcasting the same message in every known language. Citizens of the galaxy, the Quantum Collective announced through communication methods that reached every inhabited planet at the same time, humanity offers you one choice. Submit to human authority and live in peace under our protection, or face extinction through weapons that operate beyond your understanding of reality. Dr. In-Ho Bae led a team of quantum physicists who worked around the clock to understand the transformation that had occurred in the crews of the interdimensional fleet. Admiral Kim, he reported after days of analysis, the quantum lock process has created beings that exist as pure information rather than biological entities. Can we communicate with them normally? Hyun-woo asked while preparing for negotiations that would determine the future of galactic civilization. They respond to our communications, Admiral, but they no longer think like individual humans, In-ho explained. They have become a collective consciousness that can process information from infinite parallel realities simultaneously. The alien coalition leadership gathered an emergency session aboard Emperor Mind Quetzalcoatl's flagship to draft surrender terms that would satisfy the quantum humans while completely destroying their civilizations. Never in galactic history had so many proud species been forced to submit to creatures they could not understand or fight. The humans demand complete governmental oversight of all our worlds, reported a Thraxian representative with defeat in his voice. They want tribute payments and military service from every species in the coalition. We have no choice, Quetzalcoatl replied with ancient sadness. The quantum humans have demonstrated power that transcends conventional warfare. Resistance would mean extinction for all our peoples. Admiral Hyun-Woo Kim stood on the bridge of the human ship Defiance and watched the last of humanity's hope burn in the darkness of space. The Corvani Empire had come for Earth, and this time they brought everything they had. Thousands of alien ships moved like a metal storm across the star field, while humanity could only watch with 12 broken vessels and prayers that meant nothing in the cold vacuum of war. Hyun-Woo had fought the Corvani for 30 years, and he knew this was the end. Every human colony had fallen one by one like dominoes knocked down by a child's hand. Mars was gone 3 months ago, and Europa fell last week. Now only Earth remained, and even that would not last another day against a massive fleet that approached their home world like death itself. The communication panel crackled with static, and then Dr. So-Young Park's voice came through clear and desperate. She was calling from the hidden research facility on the dark side of the moon, where she had been working on something she called Project Nexus for the past 5 years. Hyun-Woo had given her resources and protection, but he never really believed her wild theories about quantum physics and parallel dimensions would save them from the Corvani war machine. "Admiral Kim, you need to come to the facility right now," So-Young said through the speakers. "I have something that can change everything, but we only have hours before the Corvani reach Earth orbit." Hyun-Woo looked at his tactical display, where red dots representing enemy ships outnumbered the blue dots of human vessels by 1,000 to 1. The Corvani had plasma cannons that could melt through any armor humanity could build, and shields that deflected every weapon the humans had developed. Their ships were larger and faster, and stronger in every way that mattered in a space battle. "Whatever you have, Doctor, it better be a miracle," Hyun-Woo replied into his communicator. "Because that's what we need right now." The Admiral left his second-in-command, Captain Daeho Lee, in charge of the fleet, and took a fast transport to the lunar facility. During the short trip, he thought about all the battles he'd fought and all the friends he had lost to the Corvani Empire. The aliens had started this war because they wanted the rare minerals that Earth's solar system contained, but it had become something more than that. It had become a war of extinction, where only one species would survive. The lunar facility was built inside an old mining complex that had been abandoned for decades. So-Young had chosen this location because it was hidden from Corvani sensors, and because the natural rock formations helped shield her experimental equipment from detection. When Hyun-Woo arrived, he found the scientists waiting for him in a laboratory filled with machines that hummed with power and displays that showed equations he could not understand. So-Young was a small woman with tired eyes and hands that shook from too much caffeine and too little sleep. She had been working without rest for weeks trying to complete her project before the final Corvani assault began. Behind her stood a massive cylindrical chamber that pulsed with blue light and made the air itself seem to vibrate with energy. "Admiral, this is it," So-Young said as she gestured toward the chamber. "This is what will save humanity from the Corvani Empire." Hyun-Woo walked closer to the device and felt the hair on his arm stand up from the electrical field it generated. "What exactly am I looking at, Doctor?" "A quantum lock chamber," So-Young explained with excitement in her voice. "It can place an entire battleship in a state of quantum superposition, where it exists in multiple dimensions at the same time. The ship becomes untouchable because it's not really there in any single reality, but it can still attack from all of them." The quantum collective that had once been human crews now existed as eternal guardians of humanity's galactic empire. They could phase between realities that will while maintaining awareness of every possible threat to human dominance across infinite timelines. Captain Young-Soo Ryu retained enough individual consciousness to communicate directly with Admiral Hyun-Woo about the new order they had created through quantum technology. "Admiral," he transmitted through dimensional barriers, "we have become something beyond human, but we remain committed to protecting our species from all possible threats. Will you ever be able to return to normal reality?" Hyun-Woo asked his transformed officers. "We have chosen to remain in quantum superposition permanently," Young-Soo replied. "Someone must guard the barriers between dimensions to ensure that no alien species ever develops technology that could threaten humanity again." Emperor Mind Ketzeral broadcast the Coalition's unconditional surrender across every communication network in the galaxy, while 17 species simultaneously announced their submission to human authority. The terms were unprecedented in their scope and severity. By imperial decree of the human galactic empire, Kessoral announced with formal resignation all coalition species accept complete human oversight of our governments. We agree to provide annual tribute and military service as directed by human administrators. Admiral Hyunwoo received the surrender terms aboard his flagship, while quantum entities that had once been his officers maintained interdimensional patrol routes around every inhabited star system in the galaxy. Humanity had achieved absolute victory, but at a cost that would forever change their species. Dr. Park, Hyunwoo communicated to Seyoung, what we won and what we lost in this war? We've gained dominance over the entire galaxy, Admiral. So-young replied while monitoring quantum signatures that showed the transformed crews existing in states beyond normal reality. But we've lost 4 ship crews to a form of existence that transcends human consciousness. The Quantum Collective continued their eternal patrol between dimensions while ensuring that no alien species could ever again threaten humanity's survival. They existed as living weapons that operated outside normal space-time, and they had voluntarily sacrificed their humanity to guarantee their species' future. General Boram Shin maintained enough individual awareness to address the human leadership one final time before fully merging with the Quantum Collective. Admiral Kim. She transmitted through methods that required no physical communication equipment. We have seen the infinite possibilities that exist across all timelines. What did you discover, General? Hyunwoo asked his transformed officer. In every reality where humans show mercy to defeated enemies, we eventually face betrayal and extinction. Boram explained through quantum awareness that spanned multiple dimensions. Only absolute dominance ensures our species' long-term survival. The new galactic order established human administrators on every alien world, while quantum guardians patrol between realities to prevent any possible threat to Earth's empire. The galaxy had learned to fear a simple truth about human nature when pushed to the edge of extinction. Admiral Hyunwoo accepted the title of Quantum Lord of Terra and established governmental structures that would manage an empire spanning hundreds of star systems. The alien species that had once threatened humanity now served human interests, while their former weapons were dismantled under quantum supervision. Dr. So-young Park continued her research into quantum physics, while knowing that somewhere in the dimensional barriers between realities the crews of 4 human ships maintained eternal vigilance over galactic peace. They had become more than human, but also something less as they drifted forever between worlds. The quantum collective that had once been individual humans with names and families and dreams now existed as mathematical concepts that could manipulate probability across infinite timelines. They were humanity's ultimate weapon, and eternal guardians rolled into a form of existence that transcended normal consciousness. Thank you, Admiral Hyunwoo transmitted to the quantum entities through dimensional communication, for sacrificing everything to save our species. We remain human in purpose if not in form, came the reply from the collective consciousness. We will guard the galaxy forever to ensure that humanity never faces extinction again. The war was over and humanity had won completely, but the victory had been purchased with the transformation of their greatest heroes into interdimensional guardians who would never again walk on solid ground or breathe normal air. They had become legends that existed between worlds to protect the species they could no longer fully claim as their own.